Welcome to the podcast series The New Student Pharmacist, where we discuss chemistry and pharmacy, as well as leaders in pharmacy careers, community, and chemistry and pharmacy research. We encourage you to support the work we are doing and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts by subscribing for free. Note, the views on the podcast represent those of my guest and I.
You can do it. The best is yet ahead of you. Lean into community and your values. The journey is worth the struggle, the achievement is worth the fight, or for personal and academic growth or progress. Welcome to a podcast of the ages, a conversation of the time, a moment of transformation, an experience of the time, an opportunity for the better. This is the New Student Pharmacist podcast experience.
Purpose of these episodes not at all for advice or medical suggestions. These are aimed to provide support to peer pharmacists in training in educational and intellectually stimulating ways. Again, these are not at all for medical advice or medical suggestions. Please see your local board and state-certified health professional. The views of this podcast represent those of my guests and I.
To our in-depth exploration of biopharmaceutics and pharmacokinetics, two critical fields that allow us to understand how drugs move through the body and how their effects can be optimized for the best therapeutic outcomes. As Barack Obama once said, the future rewards those who press on. So let us press on, not only to understand these concepts but to excel in them for the benefit of our patients. Pharmacodynamics, PD, and pharmacokinetics, PARC. Understanding the relationship. Before diving into details, it's crucial to understand the relationship between pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics. Pharmacokinetics, PARC, deals with the movement of drugs within the body, how they are absorbed, distributed, metabolized, and excreted, ADM. Pharmacodynamics, PD, on the other hand, focuses on the biological and physiological effects of the drug on the body, including the mechanism of action and the relationship between drug concentration and effect. In simple terms, PARC answers, what does the body do to the drug? PD answers, what does the drug do to the body? For your exams, remember that PARC affects PD, meaning the concentration of the drug at the site of action, determined by PARC, ultimately influences the drug's therapeutic or toxic effects, PD. Two key definitions. 1. Therapeutic response, the intended clinical effect of the drug in treating or alleviating a disease or condition. 2. Clinical pharmacokinetics, the application of PARC principles to ensure safe and effective drug therapy in individual patients. 3. Therapeutic objective, the goal of therapy, whether it's curing a disease, mitigating symptoms, or preventing illness. 4. PARC parameters, OK, elimination rate constant describes the rate at which a drug is eliminated from the body. OT1/2 Half-life: the time it takes for the drug concentration in plasma to decrease by half. Okmax: maximum concentration: the peak plasma concentration of a drug after administration. Okmin: minimum concentration: the lowest concentration reached before the next dose. OVD: volume of distribution, indicates how widely a drug is distributed throughout the body's tissues. OCL: clearance: the rate at which the drug is removed from the body. OAUC: area under the curve, represents the total exposure of the body to the drug over time, crucial for understanding bioavailability. To achieve the therapeutic objective, understanding these parameters allows clinicians to calculate accurate dosing regimens and minimize side effects. In clinical practice, knowing a drug's half-life and clearance can help determine dosing intervals, ensuring that plasma drug concentrations stay within the therapeutic window, the concentration range where the drug is effective without causing toxicity. 3. Clinical case: propranolol and patient-specific responses. Let's take a practical example to illustrate the importance of PARC and PD. A 51-year-old woman was stabilized on a daily dose of 80 mg of propranolol, a blocker. Recently, she was switched to a new generic formulation, also 80 mg. After a month on the new formulation, she reported experiencing nightmares, a side effect she hadn't experienced with the original drug. This change in her response could be due to differences in the bioavailability of the generic formulation. Despite having the same labeled dose, the absorption rate, metabolism, or even minor changes in formulation could lead to different Cmax and Cmin, which affects the pharmacodynamic outcome. This emphasizes that bioequivalence between brand and generic drugs isn't always perfectly aligned for every patient, highlighting the need for clinicians to adjust therapies based on individual responses. 4. Dosing regimens: tailoring therapy for effectiveness. As Winston Churchill once said, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts." In clinical pharmacokinetics, dosing regimens must be carefully designed and continually monitored to ensure success. The duration of drug therapy and the dosage regimen depend on the therapeutic objective. When establishing a dosing regimen, consider how much. The dose of the drug is critical because both therapeutic and toxic effects are functions of the dose administered. How often? The frequency of administration depends on the drug's half-life and how long it stays within the therapeutic window. How long? Prolonged therapy comes with costs, side effects, toxicity, and economic considerations. For example, propranolol, with its blocking action, must be dosed in a way that keeps the plasma concentration consistently within the therapeutic range. If dosed too frequently, it may lead to toxicity, for example, hypertension, bradycardia, but if the dosing interval is too long, the patient may not experience adequate therapeutic effects. VPARC parameters in depth. Let's now delve into the key pharmacokinetic parameters. 1. Elimination rate constant, KO formula. This represents how quickly a drug is eliminated. The greater the value of K, the shorter the half-life, meaning the drug will be cleared from the system faster. 2. Half-life, T1/20 formula. A short half-life means the drug needs to be administered more frequently, whereas a long half-life supports less frequent dosing. Clinically, theophylline, with a half-life of 6 hours, would require careful monitoring to ensure therapeutic plasma levels are maintained. 3. Volume of distribution, VDO formula. Drugs with a large VD, like propranolol, are distributed extensively throughout the body's tissues, meaning that less drug is available in the blood for clearance. 4. Clearance, CLO formula. Clearance reflects the body's ability to eliminate a drug. It is critical for determining the appropriate maintenance dose required to keep drug levels within the therapeutic window. Clearance can be influenced by organ function, for example, liver and kidneys. 5 Area under the curve. AUCO represents the total drug exposure over time, helping to evaluate the bioavailability of a drug. It's particularly useful in bioequivalence studies. 6 Clinical applications. Warfarin and personalized medicine. Consider warfarin, an anticoagulant with a narrow therapeutic index. Achieving the therapeutic objective with warfarin requires careful monitoring of PARC parameters like half-life, VD, and CL, particularly because small variations in plasma levels can lead to severe consequences like bleeding, if levels are too high, or clot formation, if levels are too low. For personalized medicine, where therapies are tailored based on individual patient characteristics, genetics, organ function, and other medications, these PARC parameters are invaluable. For instance, a patient's genetic profile, for example, variations in the CYP2C9 enzyme, can significantly affect warfarin's metabolism, necessitating dose adjustments. 7 Motivation in mastery of clinical pharmacokinetics. As you prepare for your exams, it's important to remember Longfellow's words. The heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night. Pharmacokinetics is not a subject you master in a single study session, it requires persistence and dedication. Every formula, every calculation, is a stepping stone toward understanding how to optimize drug therapies in real patients. You are preparing to stand at the intersection of science and patient care, where your knowledge will directly impact lives. 8 Conclusion. The path forward. In summary, pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics are two sides of the same coin. By understanding how the body handles drugs, PARC, and how drugs affect the body, PD, you can design optimal treatment regimens that are both safe and effective. Whether adjusting dosages based on a patient's kidney function, calculating the necessary loading dose for an emergency, or understanding how genetic variations influence drug metabolism, your knowledge will be the key to successful therapeutic outcomes. And remember, as Winston Churchill famously said, success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. Keep pressing forward in your studies, and soon you'll not only be ready for your exams but ready to improve the lives of the patients you serve. Stay motivated, stay focused, and let your passion for helping others fuel your mastery of this critical subject. The quality of pharmacokinetics is not strained, it flows as water through the vessels of our thought, a discipline both scientific and humane, enabling us to serve with calculated care. When we grasp its rules, we bless the patient twice, in therapeutic action and in sparing harm. So let us now, with structured clarity, explore the science which informs our craft with skill. Absorption, the gateway to effect. When drugs are given, whether oral, IM, or IV, the process of absorption must begin. This is the passage of the drug from site of administration to systemic flow. First pass effect, through liver it may go, reducing bioavailability. Yet through this phase we calculate and know the fraction that survives and reaches peak absorption constant, Ka, defines the speed, and with its help we calculate the peak, the max, where the drug begins its reign. In first-order kinetics, absorption slows by half with every passing T1/2A, a fundamental truth to know. For test once absorbed, a drug must spread, and thus we learn the concept known as volume of distribution. VD describes how widely drugs disperse, whether trapped within the blood, or tissue-bound. A high VD suggests a drug dispersed throughout the tissues far beyond the blood. Yet low VD means blood retains the dose, An important note for drugs that act with speed and measure C0, the concentration peak at time 0, soon after the bolus dose. In clinical practice, we estimate with care to know if a drug sits well in tissue space, or if it lingers longer in the blood clearance. That gentle glide of drug removed describes the body's means to free itself. Through liver, kidneys, or other paths, the rate of clearance, CL, speaks to the skill with which the drug is purged from systemic space. Measured in volume per unit of time, it governs how we dose and how we heal well. The product of K, the elimination rate, and VD gives us CL in tidy form. Or calculate by total dose and AUC, for with this knowledge, dosing comes to life, allowing us to safely reach the goal. Now comes T1/2, the half-life of a drug, a key to knowing when a dose will fade. In first-order kinetics, the time is set for half the drug to be removed from blood. The equation holds, T1/2 equals 0.693/K, where K is constant, telling us the speed to 6 source. Rempel doses 2 will cause accumulation of drug. Each peak leads toward a steady state, which stabilizes after 5 half-lives, a rule to know for sure. Master this, and on your test you'll see that time determines dosing intervals. Therapeutic balancing benefit and harm. Now we discuss the window most precise, the therapeutic range where drugs must fall. Between MEC, minimum effective KNK, and MTC, minimum toxic KNK, we balance all that pharmacology provides, enough to heal, yet not enough to harm. For drugs within asterisk, say, we monitor closely, lest we miss the mark. Therapeutic drug monitoring comes into play, adjusting doses based on serum peaks. To test this skill, be ready to recall how drugs are adjusted to meet these needs. Accumulation. The long game with chronic dosing comes accumulation. Each dose builds on the last until the peaks no longer rise, the steady state is reached. Here the rate of drug input equals loss, and CSS, the steady state concentration, allows clinicians to dose with confidence. Remember well, 5 half-lives the steady state can settle in. And if you change the dose, the clock resets, once more, 5 half-lives must begin again. Use this when preparing for your test, for mastery comes in knowing these truths. The mastery of pharmacokinetics is akin to the art of precision, an intricate dance of drug dynamics within the human body. Every process, from absorption to elimination, must be understood in its finest detail to guide therapeutic decisions with wisdom. Let us now delve deep into the core concepts that will enable you to navigate the complexities of biopharmaceutics and clinical pharmacokinetics, equipping you for the mastery required in NAPLEX biopharmaceutics questions. 1. Absorption. The journey begins. The journey of a drug begins with absorption, a key determinant of bioavailability. This process is governed by the rate at which a drug enters systemic circulation and reaches the therapeutic site. The rate and extent of drug absorption are influenced by several factors, including, first-pass metabolism, particularly for orally administered drugs, which reduces bioavailability. The absorption rate constant, Ka. This governs how quickly a drug is absorbed into systemic circulation. In clinical pharmacokinetics, it is common to encounter the formula, 2 distribution, spreading the drug. Once absorbed, a drug must be distributed to its site of action. The volume of distribution, VD, is a key parameter that reflects how widely a drug disperses throughout the body. High VD indicates the drug is well distributed into tissues beyond the blood. Low VD suggests the drug remains largely within the vascular system. Mathematically, VD is given by 3. Elimination. The body's clearance system clearance, CL, is a fundamental parameter representing the body's ability to eliminate a drug, either through the liver, kidneys, or other routes. The equation links clearance to Vd and the elimination rate constant, K. Clearance is crucial for determining maintenance doses and dosing intervals, as it defines how much drug is removed per unit of time. For drugs eliminated by the kidneys, creatinine clearance, CrCl, is often used as an indicator of renal function. Adjusting doses for patients with renal impairment is key to avoiding toxicity. For half-life, time as the constant, the half-life T1/2 of a drug is the time required for its plasma concentration to reduce by 50%. In a first-order elimination process, where the rate of elimination is proportional to the drug concentration, half-life is calculated as, for drugs eliminated through first-order kinetics, T1/2 remains constant regardless of the drug's initial concentration. In clinical practice, understanding half-life is essential for determining the dosing intervals and predicting the time to reach steady state. 5. Therapeutic window and steady-state dynamics. Drugs must remain within the therapeutic window, between the minimum effective concentration, MEC, and the minimum toxic concentration, MTC, to achieve efficacy without causing harm. The following parameters are key: CSS, steady-state concentration achieved after 4-5 half-lives during chronic dosing. At steady state, the rate of drug input equals the rate of drug elimination. Accumulation occurs when the dosing interval is shorter than the drug's half-life. The accumulation ratio is given by 6. Dosing in special populations. Drug dosing must be individualized for special populations, such as those with renal or hepatic impairment. Key adjustments include renal impairment. Dosage reductions or extended intervals are often required based on creatinine clearance, CrCl. The Cockcroft-Gault equation is commonly used to estimate CrCl. Hepatic impairment, liver function affects metabolism and clearance. The Child-Pugh score helps guide dose adjustments for hepatically metabolized drugs. For both populations, understanding the pharmacokinetic changes is crucial for preventing adverse effects. 7. Multi-compartment models. Complex disposition. Not all drugs follow simple one-compartment kinetics. Multi-compartment models represent drugs that distribute into various tissues at different rates. After and for bolus injection, plasma concentration declines in 2 phases: distribution phase, rapid decline as the drug moves from the central to peripheral compartments. Elimination phase, slower decline once equilibrium is reached between compartments. In these models, the concentration time curve is bi-exponential, described by where alpha and beta are the distribution and elimination rate constants, respectively. Knowledge of these models is essential for drugs like vancomycin and digoxin. 8. Statistical principles in pharmacokinetics. Statistical analysis plays a critical role in interpreting pharmacokinetic data. Commonly used techniques include linear regression and the least squares method for constructing relationships between drug concentrations and time. Trapezoidal rule for calculating area under the curve, AUC, a key measure of drug exposure. AUC is proportional to the total drug exposure and is used in bioavailability studies and clearance calculations. 9. Biopharmaceutic principles. From dosage to action. A solid understanding of biopharmaceutics helps anticipate how different drug formulations and routes of administration affect drug action. Rate-limited steps in absorption, dissolution limited vs permeability limited. Noyes-Whitney equation for dissolution rates.
Greetings, listeners, and welcome to this illuminating exploration of a fascinating frontier in medicine. Today we embark on a journey into the captivating world of biopharmaceutics and pharmacokinetics. Join us as we unravel the complexities of drug absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. The very processes that dictate how our bodies process and utilize the medications we rely upon. Imagine a tiny capsule filled with medicine, embarking on a remarkable voyage through the intricate landscape of our bodies. This internal odyssey is the essence of pharmacokinetics, the study of how drugs move through our system. Why should we care about the intricate dance of drugs within the human body? It's about improving lives. As Barack Obama once said, the future rewards those who press on. In medicine, pressing on means embracing knowledge and refining our practice. By delving into biopharmaceutics and pharmacokinetics, we equip ourselves to make informed decisions about drug therapy, optimizing patient outcomes. Let's delve into the relationship between pharmacokinetics, PK, and pharmacodynamics, PD. PK answers, what does the body do to the drug? While PD asks, what does the drug do to the body?
Let's break down pharmacokinetics, starting with absorption, the process of entering the bloodstream. Once in the bloodstream, the drug travels to various tissues and organs, influenced by its chemical properties. The drug encounters the body's metabolic machinery, primarily in the liver, where it's transformed and eventually eliminated.
Now, let's turn to pharmacodynamics. What the drug does to the body. The drug molecule acts as a key, binding to specific receptors and triggering a response. Understanding a drug's pharmacodynamic properties is crucial for predicting its therapeutic effects and potential side effects.
Let's equip ourselves with the essential vocabulary of pharmacokinetics. Clinical pharmacokinetics ensures drug therapy is safe and effective, considering individual characteristics and medical history. Defining the therapeutic objective is paramount for selecting the right drug and dosing regimen. Let's turn our attention to PK parameters, measurable values that provide insight into the drug's journey. We have K, the elimination rate constant T1/2, the half-life, and Cmax and Cmin, representing peak and trough concentrations. Our pharmacokinetic orchestra includes VD, the volume of distribution, and CL clearance. A large VD suggests the drug enters tissues readily, while a small VD indicates it remains in the bloodstream. AUC, the area under the curve, represents the total exposure of the body to the drug over time.
Imagine Mrs. Smith, who relies on propranolol for high blood pressure.
Recently, her pharmacy switched her to a generic formulation, leading to vivid, disturbing dreams.
Subtle differences in formulation can affect bioavailability, leading to significant differences in drug absorption and effects.
Mrs. Smith's case highlights bioavailability, how much of the administered dose reaches its target. Differences in formulation can lead to variations in absorption, metabolism, and effects. In Mrs. Smith's case, the generic formulation may have resulted in higher peak blood levels of propranolol.
Even small changes in medication can have unforeseen consequences. Open communication between patients and healthcare providers is crucial. Therapeutic drug monitoring may be warranted to ensure optimal therapeutic range.
Designing dosing regimens is where theoretical knowledge translates into real-world decisions. It's about delivering enough medication to elicit the desired effect while minimizing side effects. Continually assessing and adjusting dosing regimens based on patient response is key to success. When crafting a dosing regimen, we must consider three questions: how much, how often, and for how long. The dose is critical, as both therapeutic and toxic effects are dose-dependent. Too high a dose increases the likelihood of adverse events. Frequency of administration is dictated by the drug's half-life. Duration of treatment depends on the condition, patient response, and potential side effects.
Let's return to our case of Mrs. Smith and her experience with propranolol. This beta blocker, commonly prescribed for hypertension, works by blocking the effects of adrenaline on the heart, effectively slowing down the heart rate and reducing blood pressure. When designing a dosing regimen for propranolol, we must consider its pharmacokinetic properties. It's well absorbed from the gut, but it undergoes significant first-pass metabolism in the liver, meaning that a portion of the drug is broken down before it reaches the systemic circulation. Propranolol also has a relatively short half-life, typically ranging from 3 to 6 hours. This means that it needs to be administered multiple times a day to maintain consistent blood levels and achieve optimal therapeutic effects. The dose of propranolol can vary widely depending on the individual patient's needs and the severity of their condition. It's typically started at a low dose and gradually increased until the desired effect is achieved, always keeping a watchful eye out for any signs of side effects.
Now, let's delve deeper into the fascinating world of pharmacokinetic parameters, starting with the elimination rate constant, denoted by the letter K. Imagine, if you will, the human body as a finely tuned clock, with various organs working in concert to maintain a delicate balance. Just as a clock has a mechanism for regulating its pace, our bodies have a system for eliminating foreign substances, including drugs. This elimination process is governed by the elimination rate constant, which represents the fraction of drug eliminated from the body per unit of time. A high K value signifies a rapid elimination process, like a clock ticking swiftly, while a low K indicates a slower elimination, akin to a clock taking its time. This parameter is crucial for determining the appropriate dosing interval, the frequency at which a medication needs to be administered to maintain therapeutic levels. Imagine a drug with a high K value, eliminated rapidly from the body. If we were to administer this drug infrequently, its concentration in the blood would fluctuate widely, potentially dipping below the therapeutic range between doses and losing its effectiveness. Closely related to the elimination rate constant is the concept of half-life, denoted as T1/2. This parameter, often depicted as a tale of two halves, represents the time it takes for the concentration of a drug in the blood to decrease by 50%. Think of it like this. You pour yourself a cup of tea and add a spoonful of sugar. Initially, the tea is quite sweet, but as time passes, the sugar molecules dissolve and disperse, and the sweetness gradually fades. The half-life of the sugar in your tea would be the time it takes for the sweetness to reduce by half. Similarly, in the realm of pharmacokinetics, the half-life of a drug tells us how long it takes for its concentration in the blood to decrease by half, providing a measure of its persistence in the body. Drugs with short half-lives are like fleeting moments, quickly metabolized and eliminated, while those with long half-lives linger in the system, their effects persisting for extended periods. This concept is crucial for determining dosing intervals and predicting how long a drug's effects will last. Now let's turn our attention to the concept of volume of distribution, denoted as VD. Imagine, if you will, a drug molecule embarking on an adventure through the vast and intricate landscape of the human body. As it travels through the bloodstream, this tiny explorer encounters a myriad of tissues and organs, each with its own unique characteristics. Some tissues, like those with a rich blood supply, welcome the drug with open arms, while others, like those less vascularized, present more of a challenge. The volume of distribution, or AD, is a theoretical measure of how extensively a drug distributes throughout the body. It's like a map that tells us where the drug likes to go and how much space it occupies. A large VD indicates that the drug has a penchant for exploring, readily diffusing into tissues and spreading far and wide. A small VD, on the other hand, suggests a more homebody drug, preferring to remain primarily in the bloodstream. And so, dear listeners, we come to the culmination of our exploration. Biopharmaceutics and pharmacokinetics, these twin pillars of modern pharmacology, shape the way we approach patient care. By understanding how the body handles drugs, we maximize therapeutic potential while minimizing risks. Imagine a world where drug therapy is no longer trial and error, but tailored to unique needs. This is the promise of precision medicine, guiding us toward optimal outcomes for every individual. The advent of personalized medicine has ushered in a new era of healthcare, one where treatments are tailored to the individual rather than the masses. Gone are the days of a one-size-fits-all approach. We now recognize that each patient is unique, with their own genetic makeup, lifestyle factors, and medical history, all of which can influence their response to medications. In this era of personalized medicine, understanding pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic principles is paramount. Consider, for instance, a patient with impaired kidney function. Their kidneys, responsible for filtering waste products from the blood, may not be as efficient at eliminating drugs, leading to a build-up of medication in the system and an increased risk of side effects. By knowing a drug's pharmacokinetic properties, its clearance rate, its half-life, its volume of distribution, we can adjust the dose accordingly, ensuring that the patient receives the therapeutic benefit of the medication without exposing them to unnecessary risks. Similarly, pharmacogenomics, a field that explores the interplay between genetics and drug response, is revolutionizing the way we select and dose medications. We now know that variations in certain genes can influence how our bodies metabolize drugs, leading to significant differences in drug efficacy and toxicity.
As we conclude our exploration, remember Winston Churchill's words on perseverance. Success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. In medicine, courage to continue and lifelong learning are paramount. The journey is a marathon, requiring dedication and curiosity. Embrace challenges. They lead to profound understanding. Each concept grasped brings you closer to improving patient care. The pursuit of knowledge is never in vain.
Purpose of these episodes not at all for advice or medical suggestions. These are aimed to provide support to peer pharmacists in training in educational and intellectually stimulating ways. Again, these are not at all for medical advice or medical suggestions. Please see your local board and state-certified health professional. The views of this podcast represent those of my guests and I.
Thanks for listening to the podcast series The New Student Pharmacist, where we discuss chemistry and pharmacy, as well as leaders in pharmacy careers, community, and chemistry and pharmacy research. We encourage you to support the work we are doing and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts by subscribing for free We are so glad that you were able to tune in today. Note: the views on the podcast represent those of my guest, and I take care and all the best.